Good morning. I'm just going to jump in and no preface today. When the world fails to respond to your issue is my title. The blurb goes like this. Frankly, if there was ever a day I did not feel like doing a video in the 25 months since I began, today is that day. Yesterday, as I worked on my lawsuit, putting together my latest response to the court trying to divert me from the issues they do not want to deal with, I realize that ignoring those issues is the way of the old paradigm that must pass away. While working on that, I received emails from people with their own issues that seemed to be ignored. One of which was the abduction phenomena. Another involved two frantic phone calls from a friend I am helping with her legal issues. On top of this, I had my own issues ignored by a close friend, which is why today's video is one I'd avoid if it were not for my commitment to be real and tell the truth. However, some things must remain private. That's just the way it is if we have respect for those involved, which I do. We'll start with the court. The court is claiming that they don't have subject matter jurisdiction to deal with my issues of being denied a trial by jury and due process of law in the lawsuit that was going on since July 2005, which I thought ended last summer. Actually, I thought it ended a couple of times prior to that, but they kept coming back and they kept ignoring all of the stuff that I was putting forth. The way of the courts has been, if they don't like it, ignore it. And probably we're going to find some of that with the One People's Public Trust. They're just going to attempt to ignore the facts, ignore the truth, and continue to march to the beat of the drummer that they've been marching to for a long time. And this is one of the hardest things for humans, I believe, to deal with. When they have an issue that they feel is absolutely essential to be addressed and nobody's addressing it. They're being ignored. That's the most painful thing in the world to experience, is to be ignored. Love me, hate me, but don't ignore me. That's the most hurtful thing anybody can do to another person, and that is the very thing that seems to occur over and over again in our world. In the courts, in relationships, at every level of our interactions with other people, where we hurt is often ignored. In fact, one of my complaints to my Heavenly Father has been, why, when I'm hurting, are you ignoring me? Why, when I'm feeling pain, aren't you helping? When I'm asking for help, when I'm wanting help and needing help, why aren't you responding, God? It's a question that has come up for me over and over throughout my life. So I know what it's like to feel ignored by those you want to please and want to love, which reminds me of Tut's message for today. He wrote, and this is Mike Dooley. I get Tut's messages every day for those that aren't aware of what that is. Just Google it, Tut's Adventurers Club, Mike Dooley. You'll get it. You can subscribe. A lot of my friends on Facebook do subscribe. Anyway, he wrote, no matter how great the desire is to please another, Ron, let it be no greater than the desire to be yourself. Otherwise, ain't no one happy. Indeed, Mike, that's the truth. That is the truth. And I do need to please myself. I went to bed very troubled, and I was amazed when I woke up this morning how peaceful I felt. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep, but what I did, I ended up in a peaceful place before I even put my legs out over the edge of the bed and started going, ready to go into the meditation room. I felt a sense of peace, which sort of surprised me, frankly. But let me talk about that issue that was raised. There were a couple of issues raised, but the one that there was a specific complaint that no one is talking about this is the abduction phenomenon, and I assume this individual was referring to ET abductions, and I responded back with a couple, 3 paragraphs. I don't remember exactly how long it was, but I responded back that it's a difficult issue because, from my perspective, most ETs that are involved with us are good ETs. They have our highest and best interests at heart. I do believe that there are grays and some ETs that have done abductions, apparently, that are less than honorable. But I also am convinced that the black ops in our cabal and our government also does abductions, and those are probably the ones that are the most negative of all. I mean, what's his name? Whitley Strieber was abducted, and I guess it was by grays, from what I remember of his story. And he's come out of it with a more positive spin than some people. I have a friend who does readings, and she said she's had several people that she's read for that were abducted. So this is a phenomenon that goes on in our world, and it's one that's difficult to talk about because it's multi-layered and multifaceted. From the government's point of view, they would like nothing more, I believe, than to convince people that ETs are up to no good, that they're all demons and hurtful beings. I just don't buy that story, but I don't deny that there's probably some ETs that are not necessarily working for the highest good as far as being nice. And so it is painful when you've experienced these things and you can't get, you don't feel like you're able to get help. I know that. I know how painful, how very painful that is. When you're hurting about something and you want to resolve the issue, you want to at least get somebody to listen to you, at the very least get somebody to hear you, and they don't want to deal with that, so they don't want to listen. I mean, I've had people, and I've observed people over the years that simply walk away when something they perceive as negative comes up because they don't want to deal with negative things. And that's very, very, to me, very unloving. And yes, I'm being judgmental about it. It's very unloving. It's one of the most unloving things anybody can do to another person, especially if they consider you a friend, or even more especially if you're in a relationship or building a relationship with that person and they don't want to respond to the things that are coming up for you. They're not willing to communicate. They do what the court does and try to divert the attention to some less important matter, or at least a matter that seems less important than the one that's before you at the moment. And so these are things that I deal with and that we all deal with as we have this human experience on the planet. And I think it's becoming more so because the universe is wanting us to wake up and to see perhaps what it was trying to get me to see, going to bed feeling really scattered, really hurt, and waking up in peace. The world wants to resolve that and bring it to a place of peace. Are we going to allow that to happen? Or as I ask myself, am I going to allow it to happen? I can't fix everybody's problem, and I know that. And I can't deal with everybody's issue, and I know that. Some days I seem to get more of it than at other times. Yesterday was a day that I seemed to be getting slammed in my physical reality with other people's problems And then on top of that, they all related, as I noticed when I meditated this morning, they all seemed to have more or less a common theme with what was going on in my life. So it was the synchronicity of, Ron, look at this. Look at this, and the feelings that come up when you feel like the world isn't responding, or someone in your world isn't responding to your issue, and they don't seem to get it. They don't seem to care, and it doesn't seem loving to you, and you want to scream sometimes because it hurts so badly. Hey, I promise to be real. I promise to tell the truth. And I'm doing it without implicating anyone, because that's not my job. It's not my purpose. It's not my intent to have a pity party and say, I'm good and somebody else is bad. We're each where we are. But I'm asking you to really look at this thing, and I really need to look at it. When somebody's reaching out to you, especially somebody that's close, listen to them, communicate with them, tell your truth, work through the issue. This idea of going into a silent treatment, to me, is one of the most hurtful things. I've had people in the past that I've poured my heart out to, insofar as laying it on the table what I desire and what I've envisioned in a new paradigm relationship. And I've had them seem like they were really excited, and then totally shut me off. And I mean, it's happened more than once to me. It's a pattern in my life. They totally shut me off and don't want to talk about it. And some of my friends say, well, they don't have to. They don't have to. That's their prerogative. They don't have to tell you why or what was going on with them or give you a reason. They don't have to do that. Well, in the new paradigm, I would hope that we have and develop the sensitivity enough and the integrity enough to be honest, not only with ourselves, but to be honest with others that are close to us, that need an answer, that need to hear where we are. And sometimes it may be painful to share whatever it is that you're going through, or whatever it is that you feel you don't want to share. But it's important to share. We've got to get out of this old paradigm of ignoring and of silent treatment to others. We have to do that. Loving is about listening. Loving is about hearing what the other person is saying, and at least attempting to be empathic or empathetic to them, at least attempting to show compassion. And sometimes that seems like it's the hardest thing for some people to do. The hardest thing. I don't understand it. It frustrates me when I experience it. And I'm probably going to pretty much end right here. I do love. And my commitment to the new paradigm, my commitment to talking and telling the truth day by day, remains unbroken. Because commitment to me is one of my virtues that I hold on to, because it's about integrity. It's about being willing to go the extra mile, to bring the changes that I'd like to see in me and I'd like to see in everyone around me, so that we can create a society, literally, that works for everyone. And we can move in to the new paradigm field of cooperation and stop the power plays and I do want to read one more thing, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to read something that I put up on my wall yesterday. Let me see where it is. I was looking at a friend's wall, and a little banner with a funny picture on it had this saying on it: God promised men that good and obedient wives would be found in all corners of the world. And I chuckled when I saw that, and I responded this way: the last thing in the world I would want in a spiritual partnership would be an obedient wife. I want to share my life and love with a lady who thinks for herself, loves with all her heart and soul, and has the wisdom and will to share her gifts with the man she chooses to love freely, without fear. Control issues are old paradigm. Neither macho nor henpecked men can ever create a healthy relationship. I leave you with that thought. Namaste.